Welcome to the Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. The National Assembly is on recess, but lawmakers are not resting on their oars to conclude some important national assignments, including addressing real pressing issues such as security. Now, the leadership of the Senate on Wednesday met with the service chiefs and heads of security and intelligence agencies in Nigeria to review the strategies in fighting insecurity and explore more solutions to the problem. This was exactly 1 week after opposition lawmakers in the Senate walked out of plenary and gave President Buhari a 6-week ultimatum to stem the tide of insecurity in the country or face impeachment. Present at the meeting were the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Naval Staff, as well as the Chief of Air Staff, the Director General of the Department of State Services, the Inspector General of Police, Head of the National Intelligence Agency, and Commandant General of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps. So here's a report on that meeting, which eventually held behind closed doors.
While the countdown to the expiration of the 6-week ultimatum given to President Muhammadu Buhari to tackle the security situation in the country rolls by, the Senate leadership held a crucial meeting with the service chiefs and heads of security and intelligence agencies over the worsened security situation in the country.
Investments in the security of life and property in Nigeria.
Setting the tone for the meeting, the Senate president stated that the security crisis has lingered for too long and appears to be worsening, despite the National Assembly providing support to the executive to tackle the situation.
I believe that our security agencies and armed forces have been doing their best, but apparently we have to do more to achieve what we desire to achieve. There are, of course, several arguments whether the resources available to our armed forces and other security agencies are enough or not. Definitely not enough. I don't know of any country where there's enough, really. But even within the scarcity that we have, this administration and this Senate and National Assembly has always prioritized the security of our country. So this particular session of the interaction between us is to look into where we are today and probably this present position where we are is most frightening, because it's like there's nowhere to hide or nowhere to go.
He further lamented that the spate of insecurity has badly affected the economy.
Most of our people are in the rural areas and they lead their lives by going to farms. We all know this. In many parts of the country today, that is a Herculean task. Bandits have taken over, but it is our desire, and in fact my belief, that we can do better to secure the rural areas, the so-called ungoverned space, at least for our population who go to farms to make their living, where our agricultural productivity is drastically going down. That would complicate the security situation, because the most ordinary, everyday Nigerian cares more about what he or she or what the family will eat. And of course, other things are secondary. And where this is not possible at all, that means life is on an edge. So we have to look at that. We have problem with our economy to some extent because of security. No foreign direct investments, or not as much as we would ordinarily attract to our country. The level of oil theft is of industrial scale today.
In his response, the Chief of Defense Staff said the military is leaving no stone unturned in addressing the imbalances in the country's security.
Quite a lot has happened, quite a lot has been done, quite a lot is being done to ensure that we improve on the security setting across the country. The commitment is there, is very profound. I believe that as we go into the discussions on specifics, it will be clear that no one is leaving any stone unturned in redressing all the imbalances within the security environment.
The meeting then continues behind closed doors, which lasted for nearly 5 hours. None of the parties spoke to journalists after the private discussion.
Now, speaking of addressing the security situation in the country, there are concerns by Nigerians regarding the National Assembly's role in this fight against insecurity, and questions bordering on whether the National Assembly has done its bit. So let's speak with a spokesperson of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. He joins us virtually. Honorable, let's start the conversation by asking you, basically from my last line, if you believe that the National Assembly has done its part in this fight against insecurity.
I want to start by saying that Nigerians are in order when they describe the daily news of either insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, or other forms of terrorism, when they describe it as tenebrous and also galling. But the truth remains that the citizens are not alone in this worry. Their representatives are even more worried than them. That's why that we considered it as a vexatious issue before us. And based on that, when we resumed on the 11th of June, when we inaugurated on the 11th of June 2019, we started placing it on the front burner as an issue that needed to be prioritized. And between that 2019 and 2021, a lot of legislative interventions were recorded. For example, the Parliament dedicated plenteous time to debate about 96 motions bordering on insecurity. That means that under the leadership of Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila and the Deputy Speaker, Idris Wase, the 360 members of the House debated 96 motions with legislative time, and that's a lot, only on insecurity. And 11th of June, we started. By 13th of June, the second motion of the House, which is known as HM002, was presented by one Honorable Ajibola Moriana, who reported on the issue happening, with regards to the killing in Oyo State, at Barapa. And that's 2 years in review, which is 2019 to 2021, ended also with a motion from Benue State, raised by one Honorable Good Day Samuel on the killing and the destruction of properties at Agatu in Benue State. But between the beginning of the sections and the end of the first 2 years of the section, we had about 94 motions in between, and all of them on insecurity. And these 94 motions were spread across geographical zones, geopolitical zones, and bordered not only on banditry, but on kidnapping, on cattle rustling, and other forms of terrorism. And I can assure you, if you look at how it was spread across the nation, you will see North Central got about 15 motions on insecurity, and Northwest got 14 motions on insecurity. Northeast was not left out with 11 motions on insecurity. Southeast, where I come from, got about 10 motions on insecurity. South got about 9 motions on insecurity. Southwest, 5 motions on insecurity. And then the entire country issues affecting all the zones of the country, got about 12 motions, received the attention, including the killing of Nigerians in South Africa, received the attention of the National Assembly. But beyond motions, one will ask, what else did we do to, show that we are actually feeling the pulse of the nation? The leadership of the House periodically visited Mr. President, to brief him on what is happening with resolutions coming from the House, the pulse of Nigerians, and what we have decided as Parliament to do about them. And also, wasn't too long, Mr. Speaker stepped into the budget defense room of the Defense Committee to understand the various challenges of the security agencies in the country. And beyond that, a meeting was called by the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker for a closed-door meeting with all the service chiefs, which lasted for hours. And after that, as members of the Parliament, we spent 4 hours of last year. And what was the issue? It was for us to raise strong resolutions that will help us with this particular issue that we are faced with. One of them was that we asked the President to declare a state of emergency on insecurity. We also moved for the National Security Advisor and all the service chiefs to visit us, for us to have an interaction with them. And also we found out that the judiciary needed to speed up expedite actions, with regards to taking, giving their judgment on some of the suspects under them that needed to get judgment, or maybe their convictions and all the rest of them that borders on terrorism and insurgency and all the rest of them. And also we move for government to provide relief for all, relief material to all the victims of attack nationwide. And we ask for a sociological approach to also this issue of insurgency and insecurity in the country by looking at the possibility of having financial autonomy of the local governments. That way, they will start solving some of the issues that has given birth to these kind of criminal activities along. So we've done a lot. And before you cut me in, it's also better for me. Yes.
Let me just come in here because clearly you have stated what the National Assembly has done. And if I allow you, you would go on and on about what National Assembly has done, and I'm privy to some of those things. But the concerns would be that, does it appear that National Assembly has done all that it can possibly do? Or is there more that the National Assembly plans to do, considering the fact that there are concerns as to some of these meetings that you've been holding with the security agencies? Of course, there are meetings with the President as well, as you mentioned, and Nigerians question what the outcome of these meetings have been, considering that there has been no direct impact on the security situation in the country. So what else can the National Assembly do, or what does National Assembly plan to do beyond what it's done?
We do not go beyond that mandate. It's not allowed by the Constitution. And the tools we use are motions and their resolutions, as well as bills. Before you cut me off, I wanted to let Nigerians know that for the first time, we also organized a security summit. And all stakeholders in the country were invited. And the product of that security summit was that 9 bills we are worked on came out of it. The Armed Forces Act Amendment Bill 2021, Police Act Amendment Bill, National Security and Civil Defense Amendment Bill, and a whole lot of them. The ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms, Economic and Financial Crime, Corrupt Practices, Custom and Excise, and a whole lot of them. We needed to touch all these bills, the laws of the Federation, to enable the various arms or various sections within the armed forces get more energy against excuses for them to perform at the optimal level. And this is what we have done. The question of whether there are still more for us to do, why not until the issue of insecurity is resolved in the country? We will always be innovative in finding out what is it that is lacking, what is the gap that needs to be filled.
Welcome back to the Gavel. Let's conclude on the conversation of the National Assembly's role in the fight against insecurity. My guest is the spokesman of the House of Representatives. Honorable, just before I let you go, I'd like to ask you this question on something that's been in the public space for a while now. Is the National Assembly aware that the federal government had approved, or the president specifically had approved 1.4 billion naira to purchase Toyota vehicles for Niger Republic?
This information came at a time we had gone on recess, and it would have been good for us to call the Committee on Defense and to look at the budget of Committee on Defense or special duties, any relevant committee that handles such issues to be able to address this question, because I knew you were going to raise this question. But to answer that question, I would need to make consultation with the Chairman Appropriation Committee or the relevant committee that handles such issues in the House.
Is it possible that the president can make such a donation without the approval of Parliament?
No. Every expenses of the government must pass through the Parliament.
Not even through
that
the
is our law.
Votes, I believe.
Well, that is what I have to find out from the appropriation chairman. And by the time we come out, all the contents that pass through the service-wide vote as well, we will review that. It will be one of the things we review to know whether that expenses was done through the service-wide vote or through the budget that we pass through.
But can the president make that donation through the service-wide vote?
That is what we have to find out, if the service-wide votes and the principles around it allows such donation to be made, and if it is made in terms of securing the country or in a partnership with a country, a neighboring state, to secure Nigeria better. We will need to get more information on that. And the chairman defense, I tried to reach him this afternoon as well. He's currently not in the country. The relevant committees will be summoned by the leadership of the House to find out where that money was spent from and what it was meant for. We are told that past government did something like that with a neighboring state just to protect our borders better. We will find out the details. We are not going to depend on what is circulating on social media or television stations. Some of them, sometimes they are fake news, they are misinformation, they are half-baked. We need to have a credible source of this information through the Ministry of Finance, through the relevant committees of the House, and then we'll be able to have something more tangible and more credible to give to Nigerians. And I'm promising you, Terry, to come back to your program to discuss this further. I can assure Nigerians that we are going to look into it to find out what has been the practice before now. What did the past government do? How did they relate with the Parliament with regards to such things? I can assure you that we will shake the table if it was not properly done.
Honorable Benjamin Kalu, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Terry, for having me, and you're doing a good job. God bless you.
All right. Well, that's the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. Let's now turn our attention away from security to an investigation by the House Committee on Nigerian Content Development on the failure of companies to remit 1% Nigerian Content Development Fund as required by law.
The National Assembly is on recess, but members of the House Committee on Nigerian Content have a task that must be accomplished. The committee is investigating the non-compliance by private companies to the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Development Act of 2010.
We're here for an investigative hearing that we commenced based on the directive of the House to investigate the non-remittance of 1% of contracts awarded for any project, operation, activity, or transaction in the upstream sector of the Nigerian oil and gas industry.
The submissions from the companies on why they have failed to make their remittances did not sit well with the committee.
A non-remittance is not because we don't want to. We've had a drawback in a lot of projects happening. And I don't want to lash on what Nekondi said. Most of our clients are IOCs, ExxonMobil, that are owing us up to date.
We are in a joint operating agreement with a Chevron company called Star Deepwater Petroleum Resources. I'm very sure the consultants, when they check through the books, and they will confirm to the committee that Star Deep has been remitting on behalf of the partners.
Since 2010, there's been no record of 1 kobo remittance from your company. We're not going to hold your operator because government did not bring your operator into that field. Government gave you the field, so every liability and responsibility ends on your table.
Members of the committee appeared to be upset with the payment claim of one of the companies.
Are you hearing it? 350,000 naira was deposited. After how many years of operation?
Mr. Chairman.
No, I'm having interactive section. After how many years? You are 22 years in operation, and you are remitting 351,000.
If this hearing had not come up, this money you just pay, which I can pay for you, for your company, which it would be embarrassing, you people in private sector, you would not have paid it. So this thing you have done is an insult to this very committee. It's an insult to us here. Say, I give them small thing, now we talk, then go talk.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little bit concerned that it appears that some of the people who have come to present or respond to our invitations, that either they did not prepare to be here or that they think that this is not a serious business. So if you appear the next time, please make sure you have all the relevant documents. Do not come to talk to us in passing as if what we are doing here is not important. It's absolutely important.
The committee insists that going forward, all chief executives must appear in person.
Our final report is on the oversight function of the House Committee on Youth Development to the Mangu NYSC camp in Plateau State.
Members of the House Committee on Youth Development were received by the Quarter Guard of the National Youth Service Corps in Mangu, Plateau State. They are also received by the camp officials. Next, the committee proceeds to inspect the camp's facilities. Satisfied with the site of the camp, the committee chairman commends the corps members and officials.
I noticed one thing. I noticed orderliness. I noticed cleanliness. I noticed discipline in absolute.
He speaks about a bill which was passed by the National Assembly, which is of direct benefit to corps members.
Just of recent, our committee, with the eminent members sitting down here, we passed the bill that the past people at the Senate. The bill is now being forwarded to Mr. President. And what is that bill? And I'm very sure you that are in the orientation camp today are going to be the beneficiaries of that bill.
The skills acquisition section of the camp is a sight to behold. The National Youth Service Scheme had incorporated the skills acquisition aspect, which had been commended by many who believe that it prepares the corps members to be entrepreneurs and employers instead of job seekers. Lawmakers were also treated to some homegrown entertainment. They then proceed to the government house, where they're received by the Deputy Governor of Plateau State.
We have also been able to revive the major forum for youth activities on the state. By 2015, the Youth Council was not functional. It has been dormant for, I think, almost 8 years. 8 years. It was when we came on board that we revived it, and the youth are now actively involved in activities that, bring them together and also help to unite them for active engagement in activities in the state.
Well, that's the Gavel this week. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.